Welcome to the Exhorter podcast, where we aim to stir up love and good works through bite-sized biblical discussion. I think it's John. John, I think you have the topic for today.
I don't know if it's my turn, but I'm going to go anyways.
So that's because you're servant leader.
Yeah, sure, that's it. And I really just wanted you guys to, I wanted to get this one done and make you guys feel left out.
Oh, you wanted to get it out of the way?
Yeah, so today we're talking about something that hits a little closer to home for many of us than we'd probably like to admit, and it is the topic of feeling left out. This is a listener request, actually, which we love, so keep them coming.
Especially good suggestions.
Especially the good ones. We like the good ones.
We leave out the others.
We just ignore them. No. Today we're going to look at both sides of the issue, actually. What to do when you feel left out, and how can we be better at not leaving others out, especially as followers of Christ.
When you said look at both sides of the issue, I thought we were going to look at how to not leave people out.
How to leave people out.
How to leave people out effectively.
Here are 5 ways to do it where they won't know. That's messed up.
Ooh, that's good.
So we're just going to jump right into it. So we're going to break this up into a couple segments. And the first one, like I said, is when you feel left out. So let's start with the feeling of being left out. It's more than just not getting an invite. It hits a core need we all have, which is to belong. Whether it's a group photo you weren't in, an event you weren't invited to, or just a subtle sense that others are more connected than you, it can hit deep. Even when it's unintentional, it still hurts. Can either of you share a time, maybe growing up or even recently, when you felt left out of something and it really stuck with you?
I'm sort of like Kyle. I get invited to everything. And what did you say last time?
That's the way I perceive reality.
How did you phrase it last time? It was really good.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm a one-off. Okay. Okay. You can't bottle this magic.
You were like, I'm invited to everything, and if I don't go, it's by choice, not because I wasn't invited.
Yeah,
something like that.
That sounds like me.
This is really
I
snappy,
don't remember feeling.
Well, I can remember a specific example at summer camp, where at the end of the week there was always the campers versus counselors, volleyball, basketball, these different sports. I was really big into basketball as a kid, and I was right on the edge of like still a junior, almost a senior camper, 12, 13 years old. And, I'm big and tall and always have been. And I love basketball. And I thought I was better than some of the older senior boys. And I thought that year I would really get to play. And one of the older campers just looked at me and said, "Hey, you're not playing. Go away." And, I won't say I cried, but
did you sweat from the tear ducts?
I went and cried where no one could see me cry.
I won't say I cried, but I cried. Yeah. The last couple of years at work, my principal, I don't know, he had this way of attracting certain people to him, and he had like this clique that followed him around, and I was not part of that clique.
Did he make you cry too?
And so several times. And so I just sometimes, like, I was in my classroom and I'd look out and that clique was standing out there all talking and laughing, and I felt left out. But I would feel even weirder walking up to the group and being like, "Hey guys,
that's one of those FOMOs. FOMOs, you don't want to be without it, but you would decline the invite. Obviously,
yeah.
I would like to have the option to decline.
They were probably just sitting around saying, "Man, we wish we were cool enough for Nate to hang out with us."
To be like Nate,
yeah.
That's probably it.
You're probably right, Kyle.
For me, most of my adolescent years were marked by exclusion. So this
John is a pasty white ginger.
Well, let me get there. At church and at school, I was often.
You need that context.
I'm going to give him context. I was often an odd one out. I was short, about 6 inches shorter than my peers. Ghostly pale white skin, red hair, glasses, freckles, and I checked all the boxes for adolescent exclusion. So. But one memory I always think about, it always stands out, and we push the awe meter, right? Okay, get ready for it. A class trip to Disneyland. I was 12, 13. And you'd think it'd be like the best day ever, but I spent a good chunk of that day walking around by myself that day. Not because I wanted to, but because no one included me in their group. And yeah, sure, single rider lines, are efficient. They are great. But when you're 13, it's not what you're looking and you're thinking about. It just felt pretty sad.
Yeah. Oh,
Play
there we go.
sad guitar riff from Full House.
There you go. Which one's that one?
The one every time DJ did something bad or something bad happened to her, they would do this. It was like a strumming a minor chord.
I'm gonna have to find it just so I
Yeah.
can throw it in there. And so if you're listening and you've had a similar experience, the thing is you're not alone. Okay, so I found some interesting data. We love data here about friendships and connections, and I wrote it out for you guys.
This
So
is
you guys
so
can look
you,
around.
so
too.
you, John.
So me. We're going to talk about
empirical data.
We're going to look at data, and we're going to look at cognitive biases as well. Obviously,
Are we going to open the Bible at all today?
Yes. Oh, wow.
Where we
all
aim
have,
to
Hey, we all have our brand here. We all have our method. Okay.
discuss data-based evidence.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. But so an average number of close friends. Okay. This was an interesting study from Cross River Therapy research survey on friendship. And the study, which charted social lives of 2,000 people, showed that we make just 29 real friends in our lifetime on average. And only 6 of them last, the distance. We lose touch with almost 50% of friends that we make. And let's see if you can guess this one. The average person in America has how many close friends? I know I wrote the answer for you.
Is this a
guess.
verb?
Well, I didn't look at. I didn't look at the notes you gave me, so I can guess.
Sure. Yeah. The average person in America has blank close friends.
5.
You are generous.
What do you think?
I think.
Or I'm just popular.
I'm invited to everything. I'm Kyle.
This is getting spicy already.
3.
It's actually between 3 and 5 close friends.
I saw the
you looked at the very good. So let's say average answer 4. So the average person in America has about 4 close friends. And according to the survey, 13% of the people said they had 10 or more close friends. 36%, though, a larger chunk, have between 4 and 9 close friends. 49, the largest percentage, having 3 or fewer friends. And sadly, 12% say they have no close friends. There's also another number here we'll look at. It's called the Dunbar's number, and that's anthropologist Robin Dunbar. He suggested that humans can maintain about 150 stable social relationships. That's like acquaintances, work acquaintances, and good friends. But the number of close, meaningful contacts is much smaller, typically around 5. So you might be able to maintain that many, like I can remember that many people's names kind of thing. That's the way I look at that. So what do you think about those numbers? Does anything really stick out at you as far as that study?
150 stable social relationships. So how many people at church are we forgetting?
Like if you have a congregation of over 250 to 300 people, the fact that you're not might not remember all of their names all the time, and it's a little bit biological. Okay, it's really kind of difficult to absorb, and not everyone can do that. There are some people who have great memories and that can process all that, but we only have so much that our brains can generally kind of keep track of, and 150 people is one of them.
Is this why there will only be 144,000 in heaven? That's God's Dunbar number.
That's his. Maybe.
That's a future episode of next month on the Exhorter podcast. 144,000.
Nice.
Oh yeah, unlocking the mysteries of Revelation. Let's do that one.
Yeah.
Oh, good title.
Yeah,
excellent title.
Back to this one though. Anything jump out at you?
At summer camp, by the end of the week, I would make it a point to know every single kid's name. We all have name tags, and so the first couple days, as I would point at them, and when I did that, it was a sign to say, "Let me see your name tag." That's because I couldn't remember it. But by the end of the week, I would make it a point to look them in the eyes so they could see I'm not looking at their name tag, and say their name. Say, sure. Hi, blank, hello, blank, or go to like a Bible class and just like walk in and just be like, boom, 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 name all the kids. And by the end of camp every year, I would know about 150 kids' names.
Sure.
But the thing is, and I found that was important, is showing someone their name. When we get a visitor at church, I try to go up to them right away and show them that I remembered their name and just say, "Hey, John, good to see you again. Thanks for coming back." And that's important to show them that they're valuable to you, that you learn their name. And I think that does make a big difference, but also that's still pretty superficial. I want them to know that I care about them, but there's a lot of truth to this idea that as far as like in your inner circle, because one of the distinctions I learned at camp is I went from being a camp counselor. So I had a cabin of like 6 or 7 kids. I got to know them really good.
Yeah.
And I would stay in touch with them all year round and, chat with them or see them throughout the year. And I made a much stronger connection with those 6 or 7 kids. And then when I became camp director, I was too busy. I didn't really get a lot of time in a cabin with a smaller group of kids. I got to know everybody, but I felt like I was also missing out because I missed that getting to know this smaller group, deeper connection. Yeah. So there's a lot of truth to that you have a lot of bandwidth for all kinds of friendships and associations, but I think you're limited on the close or meaningful relationships that you can have like in your inner circle.
Yeah. Well, and this was just a study and it's a suggestion, but to this point is he suggests that you can maintain about 150. So as soon as you got back home, and to this point right now, how many of those 150 names could you pick out? So there's going to be some sort of drop off also when you get back here in a home and you have a congregation full of people. So it's this maintaining is kind of Rolodex of people. It's you're going to give and you're going to take as new people come in.
The 5 close relationships, does that include your family?
I don't know.
Because
it wasn't.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking like,
I think this is outside the family. I think it's social relationships, not familial, right? So I mean, I'm sure that tags them slightly different. But anyways, yeah. So that's thinking about audience at home. If you're thinking about this, how have you responded when you were left out, and have you ever felt excluded, only to realize that later it wasn't personal at all? And then did that change anything? I ask because our brains do actually play tricks on us. So one of those is something called interpretation bias. And so that is where we assume the worst about an ambiguous social situation, like they didn't invite me because they don't like me.
Red hair, freckles.
Yeah, when really it could have been space, budget, or just an oversight. See, what we do is we anchor our worth in other people's attention. We end up emotionally vulnerable and say things like they may not even realize what they're doing. So,
yeah,
does that make sense?
No. I've felt that before, and my wife has reminded me. It's like, well, it probably wasn't on purpose. Like, sure, it probably wasn't.
It doesn't make it sting any less. But
they came to Nate's name, and they're like, oh, like I mean,
well, S
maybe
is
some
so
people,
far down on the list,
right? Yeah. So that was a good reminder. And like Ashley and I have, had events before and had people over. And it's like at a certain point, you just have to say, okay,
sure.
There's a list and my house is only so big. And so, sometimes people don't make the list. Yeah. And that's unfortunate. But then there's the flip side of that where, other people are planning things and they've got space limitations. And so sometimes you don't make the list. And it's just like, that's part of life. Yeah. But it's sometimes hard to remember that when you're the one that doesn't make the cut.
Well, and we're emotional beings. So at the end of the day, we kind of land in that direction.
Hey, Nate, I got some scripture to satisfy your biblical requests.
I have like 3 right now, but whatever.
Well, I beat you to it. So Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 21.
Let me pause you before you read. Thank you for bringing the Bible into this conversation.
Yeah, I just appreciate that's what I bring to the table. I know John is all about empirical evidence and psychology, but I look to God and His Word for guidance.
Good man. I think if John could punch me right now,
my mother's probably going to say the same thing. She's going to be like, "Well, yeah."
We're getting there. We're getting there,
Mom. Relax.
Ecclesiastes 7 and verse 21 says, "Do not take to heart everything people say, lest you hear your servant cursing you. For many times also your own heart has known that even you have cursed others."
Right.
Is that in your list?
Maybe. I don't know. You haven't looked at the 4th page yet of my outline, so wouldn't know.
It's a good outline.
4 pages.
Thank you.
Just play with you.
Front and back.
No, and that is the thing is you never know what you don't know. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that it's not, it doesn't affect you. But I generally like to take that second and kind of walk a mile in someone else's shoes and try to empathize and understand from their perspective, maybe what they're dealing with. Yeah. And if you've ever, entertained or invited people to things, there are certain reasons you keep things small and there are benefits. And then there are some times where afterwards you look back and you're like,
I like to take the passive aggressive route.
Yeah. Of course
Nate, did you do anything fun on Friday night?
Yeah.
When I know he had people over and not me.
Did you have people over this Friday night?
No, but I do have to tell you that it's not my fault. It's my daughter's fault.
Yeah.
Her birthday is tomorrow, and your family didn't get invited.
Why not?
I don't know. To ask her.
Mine did.
Yeah. See, this is like, I feel bad now.
Wow, you should.
This
isn't going to come out for weeks until after the birthday part.
Actually, I did this because I knew the episode was. And
there
so
you go. It's actually going to come after the episode. Is that the secret that you haven't been telling me?
No, it's much bigger.
Okay.
Oh, yes, that is it. Glad to get that off my chest. Well, I'm not going
to feel bad about it, but Lukey, he's gonna hold on to that for
I invited John's family to New Year's and not yours. So
that's been on my mind this whole time, and it's been kind of awkward. I've kind of been over here.
No, I actually knew about that.
Trying to avoid that.
No, that's why we're doing this. This is kind of like
we got to make this off. This off the record. But.
No, we're making this on the record right now, and this is this was actually an intervention for you two. Actually, I know.
It's been reconciled.
We reconciled this.
It's
this
been reconciled.
Issue, but you know me. It's a topic. I just picked that little scab right there. No, I'm just playing.
Oh, that's funny.
Now, let me get to my 3 points though about feeling left out.
You don't want.
I feel like you're going to say something, Kyle. And did you want something off the record?
No.
Just this whole conversation.
I already cleared it up with him that.
No, you did. Yeah,
I invited him to coffee, just the two of us, and didn't invite you.
I thought that was really thoughtful. I appreciated that very much. Yeah.
Okay, so how can we address this sting of feeling left out? Because, like I said, you can rationalize why you may have been left out, but it doesn't take the sting out of it. So just 3 little quick things. 1, recognize the bias we just talked about, interpretation bias. We might be assuming exclusion when it wasn't intentional. Proverbs 18:13 says, if one gives an answer before he hears it, it is folly and shame. And thus the point, just don't rush to conclusions about why we are left out of things.
Oh, yeah. You can really stick your foot in your mouth big time if you say something.
Well, and you also...
Assuming that you know, like, oh, they left me out.
You also then are putting bad feelings on people that they're harder to come off. You know, like it's harder to get rid of a grudge, right?
What if there is a legitimate reason? And is there ever a situation where it'd be all right to tell someone like, dude, you have bad breath and that's why no one invites you over? Or like you talk way too much about this particular hobby. And
I'm glad you brought that up.
That throws people off.
And that's when we should pray.
Speaking of that, Kyle. Just kidding.
My second point was pray for discernment and healing. So ask God for healing from the past rejections. James 1:5 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. So when unsure about how to handle exclusion, just pray, ask God for wisdom, take a moment, and in prayer, you let those emotions subside, and it'll be a little easier to handle.
Can I add to that?
Please.
Point 2 before you move on to point 3. I would say, and this is a proverb, and I don't remember exactly the passage, but it says, in an abundance of counselors, there is victory, or something to that effect.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, I would say that it's wise if you're feeling like you've been left out for a certain reason and you want to say something, talk to someone, share the situation with someone who may be, like an independent third party.
Yeah.
And who is wise. And ask them what they think you should do.
I've done that with a couple of friends where one of us was left out of something at some different time. And so we've kind of looked at each other and been like, hey, were you invited to that? And like, okay. We weren't. It's like, oh, you weren't, like you just kind of square it up and you'd be like, yeah, I mean, then that happens sometimes. Sometimes it's intentionally small for a reason, right? And so you just got to give people grace for that. And we'll talk to that a little bit more later. But also, if you feel like you have such a good relationship with that person, and that's why it stings so bad, you should feel comfortable enough to calmly ask them, hey, I heard that you did this, and my feelings were a little hurt that we weren't invited. And a lot of times, people will just be like, that you're right. I'm sorry. I encourage us to don't sit with that. If it doesn't go away from prayer and from counsel, then take it to that person. If it's really gonna, last and sit there. A lot of times I'm okay with just letting those kinds of things go. But I think
bottling up and burying emotions is not good. Healthy.
But you have to be careful with stuff like that, because if you're the type of person,
you become vulnerable at that point.
Well, if you're the type of person who like it lets every little thing bother you, you get a reputation.
Yeah.
And then
there's more
people
things
don't
you're not going to be invited to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It gets in my head too, because now I think if I bring it up that I felt left out, next time I'm invited, it's a pity invite.
Yes.
Sure.
And so now I'm shooting myself in the foot, but I get what you're saying, because I also think being bitter is clearly not the answer.
If you can't square it away and give people grace and let it go, then you resolve it. Just like the Bible tells us to in Matthew. So we need to take it to our brethren and resolve those things. But I would say, Kyle, I'm open to a pity invite anytime. Okay, don't let that be the issue. I'm really okay with that. Okay,
is that all of your teenage years of not
exactly
of being left out?
I've got low self-esteem here.
That's okay.
And so here's the last point, just for that. This first section is don't wait, initiate. You like that? That's really good. Yeah. Take the lead if you feel left out. Chances are others feel the same. And so start small. Invite someone to coffee, game night, or a walk.
What if someone's intimidated by, they want to be included, but they're intimidated by inviting? Is this just kind of a no-win, or is there a way to baby step that?
It might be, that's the thing, is it might feel vulnerable to open your door and to do that. But at the end of the day,
take a risk.
For example, true belonging in my life came when I chose to create it. And sometimes that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
My parents gave me an example of hospitality, and that really helped me growing up. I started inviting others to hosting dinners or game nights or fantasy football leagues. Not everyone joined. Enough did to build real connections. And I stopped waiting to be included, and I followed some good examples with my parents and people.
I think you're very good at that. And I think that I think you are very intentional with that. I mean, you're the one who really brought me in here at church, because I didn't grow up at Clovis, and I married into one of the families here. But I just remember kind of feeling like, I was not on the outside, but not on the inside. And then you were very intentional about making a friendship and bringing me in, and that made a huge difference for me.
I'm glad, and that's one of those things is. I could only sit in that self-pity for so long before, I couldn't blame it on everyone else all the time, know, and sometimes that's the case too, is there's a pendulum, there's two sides of this thing. People should be inclusive, but also sometimes we need to be that change. Sometimes we need to start that and initiate it ourselves. And if you have 10 guys out there, you're going to have 2 people that are inviting everyone to something. It's just statistically, it just doesn't happen a lot.
80-20.
80-20 rule. There's not a lot of that. And sometimes it becomes very comfortable for everyone to lean on a couple other people doing a lot of the inviting and things.
Oh, we did a podcast on 80-20.
Yes, we did.
It had to be.
Sorry, I just caught up.
It caught up.
Yeah, it was one of the best ones.
So anyways, don't hesitate. Don't wait. Initiate. It might be difficult for you to do that, but try it out. There, I guarantee you, because of like the 80-20, the statistics there's a lot of other people who aren't doing the same and waiting for someone to invite them as well. Yeah. Someone will say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk about when someone steals your thunder? Like, let's say you're really excited, you put yourself out there and you invite a bunch of people and find out that, they already have plans. Someone else has an even bigger party and they just stole my thunder. And then now you go back in your shell.
No, because there's
a lot of what ifs.
Okay, I get that, but here's my perspective about that. Okay, a lot of the times, Taylor has said things to me too. She says, "Well, that friend of yours is going and hanging out with this other person. Are you jealous?" Right? And I'm like, okay. Here's the thing: is I kind of feel like I have a lot of friends, and that's a really great problem to have.
What's your Dunbar number?
I'm not going to tell you what mine is, But here's the thing is, when I find out that one of my friends has a good connection with someone else, it actually brings my stress level down a little bit, because I don't feel like I am really great about spreading my connection around to enough people enough of the time. And I would much rather people develop multiple connections and not wait for me to invite them or put it all on me. So honestly, I don't get very jealous with people when they make more connections. I do think, or some over here that I haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah.
When I find out they're close friends with 2 or 3 people, I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that I have bandwidth all the time.
I think that's a really healthy perspective and a mature perspective, because I don't think most people think
except
that way.
for when it's Kyle and then or you, and then I just get angry.
Oh yeah,
don't have any other friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, let me text my wife. Please have Brooklyn invite Luke.
Okay, moving on to
just so you know, there's only like 2 kids that got invited.
Dude, I feel honored.
That's all.
Sorry, moving on.
Yeah, usually those parties are like really big.
It's all my. It's all. Yeah. Well, it's so much work to do those big ones. And so we're like, we did a big one for their 2-year-old, and then let's just taper it off.
I let this go. Okay.
What about when you might be the one leaving people out?
That's a great idea, Kyle. So what happens when you might be leaving others out? So sometimes we're not the ones excluded. We're the ones who are accidentally doing the excluding or purposely. Okay, so most likely this is not malicious.
Context, John was staring at me.
All right, so you guys are seeing this live action, how this actually
plays out.
Really important and plays out in everyday lives. This goes on all the time, okay? Yeah. And people will actually leave congregations, I think, because of some of these things. When they feel completely left out of stuff, they will look and seek out other relationships.
People leave congregations for way less than this.
For way less than this, but I've heard multiple reasons after the fact that it was because of these kinds of things. So it's really important that we kind of go through this. That being said, most likely it's not malicious. It's probably an error of routine, busyness, or a lack of awareness. I've been there. I've left people out, sometimes unintentionally and sometimes intentionally for reasons that made sense at the time.
Is that why I don't get the invite to D&D?
You're not nerdy enough. That's
you guys have invited me several times.
You need a bigger gut.
Yeah.
Gut.
Okay, so there are times when a smaller group is really better, especially when you're trying to bring someone into a new circle and like a new member at the church or someone who's still getting comfortable socially. A massive gathering can be overwhelming, but a smaller, quieter setting might be helpful to them. Does that make sense? Like I've tried to introduce more people, and it's like to do that. Sometimes you're really intentional. It's like all your work is like on trying to include this one person, and when you're doing that, you kind of exclude some people. But then there are unintentional exclusions. And if I'm being honest, I've done the tiptoe dance where you're trying to gauge whether someone realized they weren't included.
Oh yeah.
If they sensed they had, you might reach out and explain. But if they hadn't, sometimes you let it go and not hide anything, but try to spare them the embarrassment of that.
Yeah.
So I think these are just situations we've all been in.
Yeah.
But let's face it, hospitality is complicated. Sometimes it's a games night. Only a few people can play. I mentioned sometimes a group dynamic where you're trying to make sure people already feel in the circle, feel comfortable while balancing new connections. And sometimes it's just math, limited space, limited time. But there are never excuses to stop caring. So have you guys ever wrestled with the challenge? This is so like Ray. Yes, it's like we already had these conversations. Have you ever wrestled with a challenge of who to invite and when? And have you ever realized after the fact someone was feeling left out and that you planned for? What did you do about it? Have you ever been the lever out? Right, that's
lever outer.
The lever outer.
Every time Ashley and I plan an event, it's always we are the lever outers because we make this long list. She always goes, "Who should we invite?" And I say, "Well, make a dream list, and then we'll cut it from there." So like every time, first cut, John. Just kidding, John. No, but we have to cut, and that's just part of it. And there have been a couple of times where it was kind of awkward because we're talking out back with all the other parents, and it comes up that Friday was so much fun, and then so and so is standing there who was not invited, and you're like, Friday?
Shut it.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. Like,
well,
it wasn't that fun.
No, but that happens a lot when someone is either excited or the ones talking about it and maybe not very socially aware of that. Okay, well, there's a lot of people around here that weren't there, and they might feel left out.
Yeah.
Well, there was an instance where, for New Year's, we've had some people over the years, and this last year, for various reasons, we wanted a smaller group, and that left Nate out and his family. And I kind of picked up on it. He was asking around like after church one night, what are you guys doing for New Year's? What about you guys? And I
was not fishing. I had no idea.
No, and I think you were just legitimately like, well, it's New Year's. Is anything,
Yeah.
What's going on with people? What do we want to do? Like, you were just kind of like, should we make something happen? That was my vibe. And I think I can say I chickened out. I just kind of said, and I wasn't sure exactly, but I did know that we were shrinking our list for this year for various reasons. And I should have just told you that on the spot. But afterwards, like a week or two later, I was like, it was bugging me. So I felt, I said, I texted you up and said, Nate, let's go get coffee. You're off work this week. It was like I don't know, winter break or something like that. And so I got coffee and just told you like, well, here's what happened. And we did a smaller list this year, and it's just the way the list came out. But so
after I got done crying, I said, you're forgiven.
Yeah. Well, Nate didn't start. He wasn't treating me badly. He wasn't like showing hurt feelings. This was more me. So it wasn't like Nate cried foul and I was like, okay, let me do something to, give the baby a bottle or something. Yeah, it wasn't like that, but it was bugging me that Nate and a few other families, like we did have to shrink down our list a little bit, and I didn't like leaving people out, but
that goes.
Well, and honestly,
we were way overcrowded the previous year.
And honestly, that guilt, sometimes that guilt triggers our perspective of value, right? Like if we feel really, and honestly, that maybe that's a good or bad thing. If you don't feel guilty, you left someone out, maybe you need to value that person a little bit more. But when you realize that you feel really guilty about that, maybe that's kind of showing you too that sometimes it's like, man, my value is actually right there, and I should or would have wanted to. Then it can make you think about that for the next time. So it can be good.
My 2 cents were just, if you find yourself in that position and you feel like, do something about it. Don't just ignore it, and just acknowledge it and make sure the person knows that you still value them.
And sometimes it's important for us men and to lead this direction, because we might not have the hurt feelings.
But we definitely won't show it, the hurt feelings.
Sure, but a lot of times it might be our spouse or our kids. I mean, it's super hard. A lot of times I won't care. But if my kid feels left out of something, like I just want to go to bat, right? Like I'm like, there's been birthday parties years ago where he was literally the only kid not invited. I just was like, man, to do that to my kid, just made me feel horrible for him, right? But I kind of then made that kind of like a thing with my kids. I always try to push it. Who else is in your class that you need to invite? Just because I was kind of worried about that. It's good that us men, it's good that we kind of shield and go to bat. And, sometimes I won't tell my kids if they weren't invited to something. Like I'm just gonna let that one go,
There's some serious dynamics when you're talking about a family inviting other families over, because it's like, the husbands might be really close and the wives aren't as close, or the adults might be really close, but their kids aren't, or whatever,
And do you know why? It's that sense, like we talked about in the beginning.
Breath.
Yeah, we all are ingrained with a strong sense of belonging.
Oh yeah,
and when we don't feel that's there, it's of nature to feel left out and to feel like that fight or flight kind of mentality. Yeah. It's like we naturally want to know what about us would not be, desired. Yeah. Now, if we want, we can explore a little deeper why this is the case. So statistically, our number of friendship peaks at age 21 and tends to decline from about 31 on. So life gets full, careers, marriage, parenting, health, and without realizing it, we stop making room for new relationships. And so they become more scarce, and we have more feelings about to keep the ones we have, you know? Also, there's a couple of biases as well that I like to look at. So there's in-group bias. Naturally, we favor people who are a part of our existing group or circle. For example, we gravitate to our usual friends and events, unintentionally leaving out newcomers. When you have a bias, and I think we've talked about this before, this is an area of psychology that is of interest to me, because I'm always interested in knowing why my brain defaults to a certain pattern so that I can address it. Not so I can accept it all the time, but so I can address it. And one of the ways we can address this bias to just that we tend to look at our own personal group is we can follow James 2 verse 1 says, show no partiality. And God calls us to see and love beyond our inner circle. So I think it's important that we recognize that we do tend to lean that direction, and then we can adjust for it. There's also one that's called false uniqueness effect, and that is we assume our group is more welcoming or inclusive than it feels to outsiders. We're a friendly group, we think to ourselves, but we haven't really gone out of our way to bring in new people. Romans 12, 9 through 13 says, let love be genuine, contribute to the needs of all the saints, and seek to show hospitality. It's not a passive suggestion. This is an active command, and we do need to make sure that we are striving to live it. So we can acknowledge that sometimes our brains do this, and sometimes this is unintentional, but that is not an excuse for being complacent about it. Question is, what are we doing proactively to notice and include others? People at home, who might you unintentionally be overlooking right now? What's one step you could take to connect with them this week? Put it on your calendar, reach out. It's a text, okay? Nate, you have sent me some texts before that just made me feel like the only girl in the room. No,
John, right now, you are
thank you.
the only girl in the room.
But sometimes you have sent me some really thoughtful texts that made my day, and that's your gift. You have a gift for those texts, but it's something like that. That actually is just something someone can do to make someone feel really included and seen. And I think that that's a really important thing that it doesn't take in hospitality all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't take inviting and cleaning your house. Yeah. It can just be thinking about someone and saying, hey, I'm thinking about you today. Wanted you to know that I value your friendship.
And the beauty of technology is it's so easy to do now. Hey, Siri, send John Bradford a text. Watch, she's going to answer.
Okay, so our third area here is building better cultures of inclusion. How do we fix this?
Just invite more people to stuff.
Sure.
Boom.
There it goes.
And thank you for listening.
There it goes. My point here is the church isn't meant to be, as we look a little bit outside of our own circle and understand as brothers and sisters in Christ, we have obligations to each other as well.
Yeah.
The church isn't meant to be a clique or a club. It's a family where we embody Romans 15:7, welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you. So here's a cool part of that Dunbar's number again. Okay. Most of us can realistically maintain around 5 meaningful relationships and 150 loose social ties. This means we don't have to be best friends with everyone.
Yeah.
We can make room for people to feel seen though. Right. And like I said, with the text, with these things, it's not always about, you're going to have some strong, really close friends that you enjoy doing things with.
Yeah.
And the way I address that is I just make more time to do things with other people as well. You have to include everyone on everything if you just include everyone on something. And if you spend the time to do things intentionally with people.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said you don't have to invite everybody to everything, but you should try to invite everybody to something. Yeah. Just making people feel included and letting them know that you care and just applying the golden rule. Like if I was in this person's shoes, would I want someone to reach out to me?
Yeah.
And because the other thing is we don't know what everybody else is going through and they might really, really need that.
12% don't say they don't have any friends.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So there you go.
How terrible is that? Like, let's apply that to our church. We have a congregation of 300 people. That means 36 people
you can
feel like they don't have a friend.
You can be pro or con these group meetings, these encouragement group meetings. But at the end of the day, understand, I statistically looked at a lot of our groups and stuff and talked to the elders, and it's just like, there are people who don't feel connection. And making these groups beneficial wasn't to make an attendance check. It was to provide an opportunity for the people that are going to come are the people who need it. Yeah. And so facilitators do not feel, sad that people aren't showing up to these things, because the ones that are showing up are the ones that need it. And that's what it's for.
Amen.
So
great point.
It's really important. And people in my life has shown me that too. Remember, Norton and Beth Dye years ago, I was always kind of, I always thought it was really great where they would invite people over for lunch on Sunday afternoon, and somehow they made like enough for an extra 10 people that Beth decided to invite last minute.
Well, they had about 6 regulars that were always at their house every Sunday. There was a widower, there was a couple of single people, and so they had their regulars, but she would make enough food for, like you said, she could invite up to another 10 to 12 people extra and had food ready.
And then their Friday night Bible class, like they just cut that sheet cake in smaller pieces, and like another 10 people would show up, and I know whatever they did, I'm always in awe of, I think Mark and Terry do that really well too, is when people can just accommodate so many people and then they can just open it up. And I'm like, man, I got to figure out how to do that, because that's one of those worries all the times is you want to be able to just be like, you have any plans today? You know, any advice you might have to be more intentional about and being inclusive?
I got some advice here.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable with people coming to your house all the time, get creative and find some things that are all inclusive, that accommodate that scenario of, oh, we forgot about them. Well, we can invite them. It's not like we have a set number. So, we play pickleball on Sunday nights, and there's probably an overall limit, but there's still a lot of space at the tennis courts we go to. So it still feels like today, Joe, our tech deacon at church was there. And I was talking about pickleball, and John's like, you going to come tonight, Joe? And he's like, oh, you're playing tonight? Yeah. So it's not at anyone's house. It's a public place. Yeah. We're going, and there's room for more people. So like in summertime here, we've got a place called Pelicans. They do shaved ice, and it's easy to just, you can invite add-ons all you want, because it's not like it's in my home and I've got a limited space or my home isn't clean. It's just there around the corner, and anyone that wants to come along. So find those opportunities where you can be free to invite as many people, and that makes it easier to not leave people out.
We used to do that with Frisbee golf. Now you got to have like discs for the golfing part, right? But if you have an extra one, you just,
and no sense of pride.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Well, and I know a little shout out there to Brian and Amber in the volleyball at their house during the summertime, and then hosting food for everyone. Like they don't leave anyone out. They're
so thoughtful.
We'll just throw up another net if we have too many people. And so that is always like a really great example. And I love doing that with my kids, take them out there.
There's maybe a third angle. You talked about covering both sides of this. There's maybe a third side. This is not a coin. It's some sort of triangular prism or a three-sided dice, if you will.
Sure.
What if you are the one that keeps getting invited and saying no? Because, and I'll say, Chris Ratliff, if you're listening, I will go disc golfing with you at some point. He has invited me like 3 Saturdays in a row, and I've told him Saturdays are difficult for me, and I don't want him to think I'm leading him on, but that's a tough spot to be in too. Reassure people, if you have to say no multiple times in a row, reassure them, as I'm trying to do with Chris right now. I'm not avoiding you. It just didn't work. So don't give someone the impression that you are purposefully refusing. If someone invites you, if you're able to do it, follow up with it.
You're right, Kyle. If you're invited, you should go. One, it encourages those people to keep on doing it. But two, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to edify and encourage one another. And sometimes just going to things that people are putting themselves out there is an encouragement to people, and that's what we should be doing. Also, if you have an opportunity to invite, seek those who need encouragement. Maybe not all the time. Maybe it's not every single thing you do, but find opportunities where you can seek out those people who need that encouragement. Yeah. Well, let's wrap this up here. So as we close, I want to reaffirm something simple but important. Everyone needs engagement and friendship. Friendships are important. They offer belonging, support, boost happiness, reduce stress, improve health. They help develop empathy, communication, conflict resolution skills. Building meaningful relationships is vital for overall well-being. Okay. Yep. So some people are content in a very small circle, and that's okay. But those who feel satisfied with those close connections, I want to gently challenge you to think about what you have to give. There are people out there who don't have what you have, and you could be the encouragement they need. So sometimes you feel like, well, I don't need that for myself, but we are to look at our talents. You're not supposed to bury them. We're supposed to seek out what our opportunities are for other people. So that's that. Now, if you're one of those who already feels stretched, maxed out on time and energy, I get that too. Not everyone can carry more, but that just means the rest of us need to lean in and do our part. Let's remember the church didn't grow just through preaching. It grew through connection, through people being in one another's homes, through brotherly love that was felt and not just talked about. So I want to challenge each of us this week to think about someone whom we might be able to include, who needs a text, an invite, or a seat at the table. Who could we reach with simple friendship? And for those who are listening and feeling left out, I want to leave you with 2 things. First, I want to ask you to forgive people. I know that's hard when you feel overlooked or forgotten. It hurts, but so often it's not intentional. Second, I want you to hold on to this phrase, if it is to be, it's up to me. Sometimes we have to be the ones to take the first step, who invite, who reach out, who open the door. And maybe you will, and maybe not many people will show up, but keep going, keep trying, because connection is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you are not alone in that journey. So Romans 15:7, I'll leave you with this. Therefore, welcome one another as Christ has welcomed you for the glory of God.
Amen.
Well, thank you for listening today, and thank you, John, for leading our discussion. And you've given us a lot to chew on, John, and a lot to think about, both when we feel left out and when we're the ones inviting. We want to make sure we're as inclusive as we can and not letting anyone feel like they're on the outside looking in. Ultimately, we are to be a family within the body of Christ. We're a body. When one member hurts, we all hurt, and we weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. We need to be interconnected. And yeah, we can't be perfectly balanced in our friendships, but we need to make as big an effort as we can. Well, thanks, guys, for listening. And if this episode has been helpful to you or given you something to think about, we're glad to be of value to you and hope you'll tune in about every week for new episodes. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
Welcome to the Exhorter podcast, where we drink coffee together and talk.
That's about right.
Okay. Don't leave out liking and subscribing to our podcast, huh? Yeah, we don't want you to feel. We don't want us to feel left out.
There you go. Yeah,
that's right.
Reciprocate.
That's right.
There we go.
Reciprocate. Yeah, good.
Oh, we did a podcast on 80/20.
Yes, we did.
It had to be.
Sorry, I just caught up.
It caught up.
Yeah, it was one of the best ones.
My processing is slow on Sundays.
Slow. Yeah. No, you work today.
Sorry about my friend. He's a little slow. The town is back that way.
What movie is that from?
Oh, stop. Were you really asking?
We have to stop the podcast right now until you tell us what it is.
You know. You don't know?
Well, I could tell you and totally redeem myself.
Okay.
But I won't.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. When you said don't wait, initiate, I was like, oh, so if you know someone is having an event,
just go, man. Just go.
Just invite yourself over. Hey, bro, I heard you're having this thing at your house. Can I come?
I just did the third quote right there.
I got that.
Good. Okay.
I got that. We haven't done a Star Wars reference, though.